Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the AICPA Personal Financial Planning Podcast. I'm Andrea Miller, and here we are in our third year of delivering insights from experts on tax, retirement, estate, risk management, investment, client service, and practice management topics. Be sure to visit us at aicpa.org/PFP and stay tuned at the end of the episode for information on how to access valuable resources. And now over to our guest.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm Lauren Minch, and I'm here with Barbara Waxman to talk about middle essence, new age, new stage, midlife redefined. Barbara, we're so happy to have you today. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me. And I'm really thrilled to be presenting at the conference and getting to meet so many people there who are financial advisors, because it's an area that's near and dear to my heart. I've worked in that industry with folks for probably 30 years. My background is that I'm a gerontologist, which means I specialize in adult development. And as adults, we do continue to develop and grow. Most of you out there probably know that you keep wondering in the back of your mind, when am I going to grow up? When on paper, we're all supposed to be grown-ups by now. So I specialize in understanding the different stages and help people identify who and how they want to be when they're at the midpoint and better part of their lives. And I do that through coaching and speaking. So that's a little bit about me.
And Barbara, that's a lot of the reason why I'm very excited about hearing this presentation. I mean, when you and I were just briefly talking the other day and you were telling me about some of what you do, it was just a very enlightening conversation for me, because I am, hitting the midpoint of my career. And, I want to see how the rest of that's going to play out. And your comments that you mentioned, it was very inspirational, and it was just a session that I'm very excited to hear more about, and to hear more about your midlife, the middle essence, and the value that you can bring to someone that is in a stage of their career like I am, or even someone that is a little bit further along in their career. So very excited about this presentation. So with that, could you maybe tell us a little bit about your presentation and Engage, and then maybe tell us some of what we're going to cover in this session today?
Absolutely. So the good news or bad news is this is not about numbers. This is, in my estimation, way more important. What I'm going to talk about has way more to do with the pain points that financial advisors are suffering from now in two ways. Financial advisors are leaving the business in droves right now post-COVID. People are going through a reckoning, we all are, of trying to figure out how we want to operate in the world, how do we reduce our stress. So part of what I'm going to talk about has to do with applying to how to make your life the life well-lived that you want, and therefore how to use some of the tips and tools that I'll be sharing with your clients. Because the dollars and cents you've got down by now if you're coming to this session. What you likely don't necessarily know is, how do I continue to build relationships, or how do I build my business and start relationships when people are stressed, people don't respond to emails? How do I really engage in this level? And so I'm going to turn some of what most advisors think about their work, I'm going to turn that on its head, and I'm going to give people actual tools that they can use as they understand that you're in the relationship business, not solely in the financial services business. The other thing is, we're going to look behind the numbers and discuss what is it that keeps clients loyal. Almost 50% of advisors lose their female clients when there's a change in the relationship. Oftentimes, the male is more dominant in these conversations. It's changing, but it hasn't changed yet. Why is that happening, and how that can change is part of what I'm going to touch upon. And I'm going to talk about why focusing on age won't result in the success that you want to have with your clients. We're going to talk about focusing on stage, not age, and why that's important and how to do it. So that's a little bit of an overview. And then I like to have these sessions be really interactive. We'll have polls. It's going to be engaging because I think that's the best way to learn.
Excellent. No, it sounds very exciting. Very interactive is always good. You've mentioned midlife, the middle essence. Could you tell us a little bit more specifically, what is that?
So in 1900, so 120 years ago, roughly, we lived in the United States to about 47 years old. That was life expectancy in 1900. Today, we have added more than 3 decades to that number. And that is the most significant change that has ever happened in history or prehistory for millennia. People didn't age, they died. The problem is our culture has not caught up to this reality that at, call it 50, people have 30 active years in front of them. They're not looking to withdraw. And by the way, this is not a retirement talk because retirement itself is an anachronism. This is looking toward, hey, people in their 50s are the largest number of people going back to school, the largest number of entrepreneurs. So how can you tap into some of that? So midlife has been this no man's land, and now, from my perspective, it's the most awesome place to be. It's like we can take the wisdom from hard knocks that we've encountered, and that's typically where the greatest learning is. We can take the dreams that we want to pick back up after we fulfill, for example, the parenting chapter of our lives. We can go back and take more risks for ourselves again, rather than thinking we need to play it safe. So I'm going to be talking about why midlife is a new life stage that is called middlescence, like adolescence, but this time with wisdom if you know the questions to ask yourself and ask your clients. I guess you could say it's not your parents' midlife. At 50, our parents were thinking they're on the back end. Psychologically, our parents downshifted to what retirement has become known for: leisure, a trip, being a grandparent for a few years, and sort of working towards the end rather than looking at starting new things. Now that we know we have this extra 30 years of health, it's a very different story. Just yesterday, I met with a client of mine, Marcia, who has been head of school at a large independent school in Manhattan. Marcia's 70 years old. She took the school through the COVID crisis more successfully, I will say, than new heads of school, younger heads of school, because she had wisdom and experience to rely on. She's, as I said, 70. She's just having her daughter go off to high school next year. So the stage she's in, she's at the pinnacle of her career, and she's sending a child at 70 off to high school. We no longer could have anticipated that if we looked at the numbers alone, and I'm really going to address that because it's critical. The key is to talk about health span with clients, not lifespan so much. Make sense?
It does. That's very, very interesting. So you've mentioned advisors many times so far in the discussion. Why is this topic so important for advisors to understand?
When I speak with advisors, clients who are financial advisors, so many of them feel uncomfortable getting away from the numbers. And that actually is where the magic happens. So those advisors who don't feel comfortable understanding the kind of relationship building exercises and conversations that need to happen are going to be left in the dust. But we all try to simplify. And in so doing, advisors often talk to clients more or less describing life in 3 stages, right? How do you fund education for your kids when they're younger? What was your education? And then in the midlife, talk to me about your career, how long you think you'll work, how's your family, and what do you need to fund, and then what do you think about for retirement? So if you could imagine 3 books on a shelf, those are the 3 book titles or chapters. Learning is for the young, work and family is in the middle, and then leisure and retirement is the end. We don't live life in 3 chapters anymore. We cycle through school throughout the course of our lives. We cycle, frankly, in and out of relationships through the course of our lives. We cycle in and out of jobs over the course of our lives. So while simplification is good in some ways because you can cut to the quick, simplifying in this way no longer applies or is useful. So we'll talk about that. It's one reason. Another reason is, while on the one hand I'm saying it's not as simple as life is in 3 chapters, critical information for advisors to know are things like the U curve of happiness, which is research-based. And if you imagine a smiley face, that it's high on one side, that dips, and it goes back up. Well, in our 20s, research shows, and this is international research, that in our 20s, we're pretty darn happy, even though in midlife, most of it would say, I don't think I'd want to go back there. But in our 20s, people report that they're happy, and much of it has to do with feeling like, I've got all my life to figure things out and make mistakes. That's cool. It starts to go down in our 30s and our 40s, and it goes down not because people are unhappy, but really because those are hard-slogging years. We're caregivers. We're trying to prove ourselves at work. There are so many things that make them fulfilling years, but not our happiness. And that reaches the bottom at around 47 to 50. And at those ages, middlescence, there's this internal shift about, is this what I want to be doing? Who do I want to be in the world? And that's the sweet spot where I love to work with people. And research shows the smiley face goes back up over the course of our lives. People often think that older people are less happy. They're not. They're happier because of a few factors, but I'll just mention now. We start to care less about what other people think. We shift from always feeling the need to prove ourselves to wanting to improve ourselves for this inner shift that happens, or as a reflection of this inner shift that moves us from a certain kind of success to wanting to feel more of a sense of significance in our life. So we actually get happier with age, and advisors need to know this for yourselves and for clients to help them unlock what they really want to have. So it's time to retire retirement and focus on meaning and purpose. In fact, when we were talking the other day, Lauren, you were telling me your story, right? That you had this sense of needing a shift. Would you mention it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Before I go into that really quickly, I just have to say you made my day, because you just said that U curve of happiness hits bottom about 47 to 50, so gets happier after that. So I'm glad to know that I'm kind of at the bottom and I have nowhere but up to go from here. So you just made my day.
You're just getting going.
That's right. I'm just getting going. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, no, my story is, I had spent many years in the finance and accounting industry, and I had found a really good job. I had been there for many, many years. And it was a great job. The pay was good. I was able to make my own decisions. It was a small office. It was close to home. I mean, it was the A+, check mark, all of the above for that job. But what I found is after a while, I wasn't challenged. And I just felt like I was just going to work, doing what I needed to do. I found myself becoming, unhappy in the job. Nothing wrong with the job, the people I worked with. It was just I wasn't challenged anymore, and I always like the new challenge. And as you were saying, I always like to grow and improve myself. And so I was there, and I started getting into teaching. I was trying to do something to continue to challenge me. So I'd gotten into teaching and got into that, part-time on the side, and did that for a couple of years and just realized I still wasn't happy. And so I actually started thinking, well, Lauren, you're not going to retire at 62, 63, 65. You're someone who's going to want to work as long as you can work. So why are you keeping yourself in a job that might pay well and that you check box on all the boxes and do that when you're trying to maybe save up for retirement that you're not really going to have because you're always going to do something? So then I just took a look at it and said, I want to find something that actually fulfills me a little bit more, that challenges me a little bit more. And so I left that job. It was a very hard decision to make. Like I said, it was all the check boxes with that job. It's just I wanted something that was going to challenge me and something new, something different that kind of got me outside of my box and got me into something that was different. And I'm so happy I made that change. I've been happier ever since. Some of the people that I knew when I was at that last job, I've met with them since then because, we parted ways just fine. And they've all said, Lauren, you seem so much happier. And they're right. I am, because I had just gotten in a position that I wasn't happy, and I didn't need to keep myself in that position. When I thought through it, and exactly what you're saying, Barbara, is I realized I'm not going to hit this certain age and everything is done. It's like, this is a journey. This is a long haul. This isn't, what am I going to be doing in the next 15, 20 years so I can just check out and all of a sudden do nothing. So I was very happy I made that decision.
Thank you for sharing your story. It is shared by probably almost everyone in one fashion or another who's listening to this, because we all have these inner shifts and we have to check in. And sometimes we do this analysis. We take a personal risk assessment. How much am I willing to risk? Well, if I've got these kids in school and I have to pay for this and I've got these responsibilities, maybe it's not right now, or maybe it is. So we do this personal risk assessment and then sometimes say, yeah, I'm good to go. And then sometimes say, you know what? I want to make a shift, even though I look successful on the outside. On the inside, so many of us feel like I could keep doing this, but it's just not enough. So good for you for having the guts to make that kind of shift. I look forward to the time where more of us are going to stop suffering from a lot of the cultural messages that are out there. And I see each one of you advisors as a messenger, as a role model, if you will. I think our culture is suffering what I would call, as a gerontologist, but I made this up, cultura lagosis, which sounds awful. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Cultura lagosis, the diagnosis is that we have this cultural bias toward youth that is not based on fact, and we haven't caught up to the fact that we now live long enough to go through adolescence twice. So when we are in midlife, which I won't define by a number, people know it when they feel it. When we're in midlife, like adolescence, we say, things are shifting, I'm uncomfortable, I don't know my place in the world, my relationships might be changing. What do I want to do about it? But now if we use our resources, because in midlife, we have more resources than any other stage. If I use my resources well, I can figure out how I want to experiment, because we know that nothing is perfect, that life is messy, and we can try something out and we will survive if it doesn't work. We've been around the block long enough to know that. So we've got to resolve cultural lagosis, and I think every single one of the advisors can change the arc of the relationship in our culture that we have with aging and the approach to clients. So those demographic and relational shifts in conversations are what we're going to talk about during the session.
Wonderful. As I mentioned, I'm very excited about this session. You're very inspirational. It's very enlightening just to hear your conversation. So very, very looking forward to it. So on behalf of the PFP section, this has been Lauren Minch and Barbara Baxman, and we hope you enjoyed this podcast. You can learn more about Middle Essence, New Age, New Stage, Midlife Redefined from Barbara in her session on Monday, July 26th, 9:30 to 10:45 a.m. It's a personal financial planning event as part of the AICPA's Engage Conference. Really hope to see you guys there. And we also encourage you to visit the PFP section website to access valuable resources to help you and your clients. Stay tuned for Andrea Miller, who will tell you how to register for the conference and find the PFP section resources. Thank you so much for listening.
And thank you for sharing with our community of listeners. Our hope is that you found a valuable takeaway that helps you help your clients. Check out the show notes to find resources related to this episode. We are living through unprecedented times, and we want to know what you need most to support your clients and your business. Feel free to send an email to financialplanning@aicpa.org with topic ideas. The AICPA PFP section is the home for professional financial planners, designed to save you time, help you best serve your clients, and take your practice to the next level. To find more valuable resources, visit us at aicpa.org/PFP. If you'd like to know more about the CPA-exclusive financial planning credential, go to aicpa.org/PFS. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to next time.
This podcast is designed to provide illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered and does not represent an official opinion or position of the AICPA or AICPA.org. It is provided with the understanding that the AICPA and AICPA.org are not engaged in offering legal, accounting, or other professional service. If such advice or expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. The AICPA and AICPA.org make no representations, warranties, or guarantees as to, and assume no responsibility for, the content or application of the material contained herein, and especially disclaim all liability for any damages arising out of the use of, reference to, or reliance on such material.